Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely challenge a basic assumption that honestly pretty much all of us make about our own anatomy. We tend to think of human beings as products of the standard, rigid factory blueprint, right? 2 eyes, 1 heart, 10 fingers, 1 set of DNA. But the biological reality? It is far more chaotic, far more adaptable, and infinitely more fascinating than that. We're going to explore the hidden wonders of human anatomical variations, pulling back the curtain on evolutionary leftovers and genetic surprises that are hiding right under your skin. So, I want to hook you right away with a really provocative question. Are you absolutely sure you are only one person? I know, it sounds like science fiction, but as we navigate through this explainer, we are going to build up to a totally mind-bending biological reality where a single human body can literally possess dual genetic identities. But before we get to that ultimate anatomical twist, we really need to understand just how flexible the human body actually is. Okay, Section 1. Echoes of our ancestors. Let's dive into this by starting with the visible, vestigial traits that turn your everyday body into a living, breathing museum of human evolution. We literally carry echoes of our distant biological relatives right out in the open. Next time you're near a mirror, take a really close look at the inner corner of your eye, right near your nose. You'll see this tiny crescent-shaped fold of tissue. It's called the plica semilunaris. Now, in animals like birds, reptiles, and some mammals, this structure is actually a fully functional third eyelid. It's a transparent membrane that sweeps across the eye for protection, moisture control, and cleaning. Because humans evolved entirely different ways to handle those tasks, our fold doesn't move across the eye anymore. It just stays tucked perfectly in the corner, helping out with eye movement and tear drainage. It is a stunning visual connection to our evolutionary ancestors. It shows us exactly how evolution leaves behind structures that once had a completely different purpose. You know what's really fascinating here? It's how millions of years of change are preserved in these completely harmless features that most of us can't even use anymore. For example, there's Darwin's tubercle, named after Charles Darwin, of course. It's just a small, pointed bump of thickened cartilage on the upper rim of the ear. It's totally harmless, but researchers connect it to ancestral traits found in earlier primates. And speaking of ears, think about your auricular muscles. Cats and dogs use similar muscles to dramatically rotate their ears, to pinpoint where a sound is coming from. Humans gradually lost the need for that, as facial expressions became our main way of communicating. Sure, a few people can still voluntarily twitch these muscles, but for the vast majority of us, they're just vestigial remnants, a tiny, quiet reminder of a much older biological history. Actually, let's do a quick physical test together right now to see evolution happening in real time. Hold out your hand, touch your thumb and little finger together, and then just bend your wrist slightly towards you. Now, look for a raised tendon popping up right in the middle of your inner forearm. Do you see it? If you don't, well, you have what's called agenesis of the palmaris longus. Basically, you are completely missing this muscle. It usually develops before birth, but in a lot of people today, it just never forms at all. Our ancestors likely relied heavily on this muscle for gripping and climbing trees, but our modern lifestyles just don't require it. It's a brilliant, real-world example of how we can literally lose certain structures without it affecting our daily function at all. Moving on to Section 2, Hidden Extras Inside You. So as we travel deeper inside the body, we uncover these hidden, fully functional anatomical extras. While the traits we just looked at are kind of fading away, sometimes human development goes the exact opposite direction, giving us way more than we bargained for. And the variety here is just astonishing. Did you know many people live their entire lives completely unaware that they are carrying extra organs and bones? You might have an accessory spleen. That's a small, extra piece of spleen tissue that can actually filter blood and do immune functions just like your main spleen. Or what about a cervical rib? This is an extra rib going from the vertebrae all the way up in your neck region, literally above your normal rib cage. Even rarer is an accessory kidney, an entirely separate third organ with its own dedicated blood supply. And then there are supernumerary nipples. These develop along the mammalian milk line that runs from the armpit down to the groin. Most of the time they just masquerade as tiny moles, but they actually reflect developmental patterns that we share with our distant multi-nippled mammalian relatives. Here's another incredible hidden extra, the persistent median artery. During early fetal development, this specific artery helps supply blood to your growing hand. Now, in most people, it shrinks down and completely disappears before birth as other blood vessels take over the job. But in some individuals, it fails to shrink. It just sticks around and remains an active blood supply route for an entire lifetime. And what researchers find so compelling about this blood vessel is that its frequency appears to be changing.
modern populations might actually be showing an increase in the specific anatomical variation, which proves that human anatomy isn't stuck in the past. It is still actively varying and evolving today.
We also see this massive flexibility in the development of supernumerary fingers. Medically, this is known as polydactyly. Because of slight changes in genetic signals during fetal limb formation, a person might develop extra fingers beyond the standard 5. And these aren't always just small pieces of soft tissue. Sometimes they are fully functional fingers with their own bones, joints, and muscles. It's a trait that's been recorded throughout all of human history, and it really highlights just how precise, yet incredibly adaptable, human development can be.
All right, Section 3, glitches in development, specifically incomplete separations and closures. The thing is, human fetal development isn't perfect. It is this highly complex, delicate choreography of growing tissues. And well, sometimes there are tiny glitches. This beautifully illustrates how the intricate processes of folding and separating tissues before we're born can leave lifelong, though usually totally harmless, structural differences. Take the Bifid Uvula, for example. That's the little piece of tissue hanging at the very back of your throat. Sometimes it's literally split into 2 parts because the tissues in the roof of the mouth didn't fully fuse together. Or consider an atrial septal defect, where a small opening remains between the upper chambers of the heart simply because a dividing wall didn't completely close. And then there are webbed toes, or syndactyly. That happens when the naturally programmed process of tissue separation between the toes just stops before it's fully finished. All these small interruptions just create lasting, unique variations from the typical blueprint. Now, alongside those structural glitches, we also have mechanical quirks and misfires. Take Frey's syndrome. This is a wildly unusual condition where nerves that are supposed to control your saliva production mistakenly reconnect with your sweat glands after an injury. The result? The brain tells the body, hey, get ready to digest some food, but the person actually experiences facial sweating instead. Wild, right? We also have tonsil stones. People think these are infections, but actually, scratch that. They're just natural debris hardening in the deep little pockets of large tonsils. Or how about a pilonidal sinus? That's a tricky, hidden tunnel right near the tailbone that tends to trap loose hair. And finally, the Mongolian spot. It looks like a bruise, but it's actually a completely harmless birthmark caused by pigment-producing cells getting stuck deep within the skin layers while the fetus is developing. While most of the developmental glitches we've been talking about remain entirely hidden inside the body, heterochromia is a striking visual display. Because of variations in melanin, which is the pigment that colors the iris, a person might be born with 2 entirely different colored eyes or even multiple distinct shades within a single iris. It's a genuinely beautiful reminder of how incredibly small genetic differences in pigment production can create remarkable, instantly recognizable variations in human appearance.
Which brings us to Section 4. Chimerism. 2 identities.
Okay, so if you thought growing an extra kidney or having different colored eyes was weird, prepare yourself. We have officially reached the ultimate anatomical variation, chimerism. This is an extremely rare biological condition where one person carries 2 genetically distinct sets of cells inside a single body. Think about it. We are always taught that every single cell in your body contains the exact same DNA blueprint. That's rule number 1 of biology. But for someone with chimerism, that basic rule is completely broken. They literally possess 2 entirely different genetic identities functioning together as one complete organism. The condition is very aptly named after the chimera. If you know your Greek mythology, you know the chimera is a terrifying creature made by combining completely different animal parts into one monster. Now, obviously, the human reality isn't monstrous at all, but it is incredibly cinematic and honestly, almost unbelievable. How on earth does a single human being end up walking around with the DNA of 2 completely different people? Well, here is exactly why chimerism creates 2 distinct identities. It all starts at the very, very beginning of pregnancy. Initially, 2 completely separate embryos form. Under normal circumstances, right, these 2 embryos would just develop into fraternal twins, 2 totally distinct siblings, each with their own unique DNA. But in cases of chimerism, something else happens. Very early in the pregnancy, these 2 embryos actually combine. They fuse together and merge to create just one single developing fetus. So because this brand new individual is built from the cells of 2 completely different genetic sources, different parts of their body will quite literally carry different DNA. They are, in a very real biological sense, their own twin. And because these dual identities are mixed together at the cellular level, the condition remains completely invisible most of the time. A person with chimerism might just have small differences in skin pigmentation, or maybe even different blood types in different parts of their body. Incredibly, their liver might have the DNA of twin A, while their blood or maybe their skin carries the DNA of twin B. Most individuals with this live entirely normal lives without ever knowing about this unusual cellular mixture inside them. In fact, it's usually only discovered by total accident, like during unexpected DNA test results for medical procedures or legal testing. Imagine a doctor being totally baffled to find that a mother's blood DNA doesn't match the DNA she passed on to her own child. It's absolutely wild.
Finally, Section 5, our biological patchwork. Bringing this all together, it becomes profoundly clear that there is simply no such thing as a standard, uniform human being. We are definitely not printed from some rigid factory blueprint. From the harmless tonsil stones in our throats and those vestigial muscles around our ears, right up to the astonishing dual identity reality of chimerism, the human body is a highly individualized biological patchwork. We're shaped by ancient ancestral echoes, molded by tiny developmental glitches, and filled with hidden extras that prove just how deeply, incredibly unique every single one of us truly is. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder the next time you look in the mirror. If it is biologically possible to walk around carrying the DNA of a sibling who never even was, what else do you think might be hiding unseen in your own blueprint? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And remember, keep questioning what you think you know about yourself.